Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode from BreakTurn. We've got another awesome guest with us today who's got a awesome story. I saw him post on RTAG last month, and when I read and I'll read a snippet of it, when I read his post, I was like, I have to chat with this guy because your story has got to be wild. So Daniel O'Neill's joining us today. Say hey to everybody, Daniel.
How's it going, everybody?
Hey. So I saw your post. And the way that I like doing these little podcast episodes is I'll learn a little bit about kind of the story, but not too much because I'm just wildly intrigued about what your process was and kind of how you went through everything. Because I think sharing it with folks is just huge value add for someone who may be going through the same decision points that you had. So to give a little snippet of it, the first line of your post, I think it was on August 19th, the first line is, unrestricted ATP and 320 type in 32 months while on active duty. And I'm like, bro, how is that possible? And then you kind of post about it. You kind of keep going about a couple different things. And then you said, if you're in a similar situation, reach out and we'll more than willing to help. And I'm like, dude, we're sharing your story. So yeah, man, that's what we're going to talk about today. So, I mean, where we get started, tell me about your kind of your history, your past, right? Like you're in the military, you're in the Marine Corps, and you, I don't know, start wherever you want. Let's go back and then we'll go forward from when you decided to do this 32-month wild adventure.
Right on. Well, I appreciate it, man. And first, I'm very humbled to be here. And the biggest thing for me is how to help the next guy, right? So before I go into all this stuff about myself, everything that we're going to talk about today is mainly just to feed you the information that you need to be able to make a better, well-educated decision on what you want to do and if this is what you want to pursue and how you're going to do it. So back in about myself, I've been in the Marine Corps for about 14 years now, enlisted out of a super small town in Carroll, Ohio, just south of Columbus, right? So when I was 17 years old, I made the decision to do that. Left, didn't really look back. And then it wasn't until, years down the line, whenever you go home on leave and you're like, wow, everything is still the same, right? So just multiple duty stations kind of went all around. My first one was in Warner Robins, Georgia. Then I went to Camp Pendleton, and kind of that's where, it's once you get there once, like you're always going to keep going back. San Diego is amazing, super nice area to be. And so if you live away from the coast, it's a pretty nice place to raise a family too, right? So I enjoyed it, loved it, and the Marine Corps threw me a little curveball. I went on recruiting duty, and I was a recruiter in Houston, Texas, and that's where I met my wife. I had my first daughter, and everything from that point, once I kind of solidified, like, hey, now I have a family, I have a daughter, I have people relying on me, people depending on me. That's when I kind of had to make this decision, right? Like, do I stay on recruiting, career recruiter? People think that's nuts, right? But in my mind, it's, all right, I get to go home every night. No more deployments, no more MREs, nobody, it's a completely different type of dynamic. But whenever you're a recruiter, it's a pretty high stress job, right? Like, it's not like you're getting shot at or anything, but you kind of feel like it every day when you go into ops. It's like, well, if you don't have what you need. So
Gotta get those numbers, man. Gotta get those numbers.
Yeah. So, but I enjoyed it. And the reason being was just being able to interact with people. Maybe not so much like the mission letter and the pressure and like all that stuff, but where I really started to realize that I enjoyed helping people was there was I specifically remember this kid, and I won't say his name. He knows exactly who he is, but I went to go get a parental consent for him to join the Marine Corps at 17 years old. And people that are familiar with the Houston area, there was Hurricane Harvey. Was just, I was recruiter in 18. It was just right before that. I walk into this house, man, and I cannot put it into words. Like I go in to meet mom. Dad comes in, and all the drywall in this house was cut 5 feet and below. Just completely gutted out, plastic everywhere. There's no walls, like the floors are ripped up. Just subfloor everywhere. And I'm like looking around, I'm like, man, what's going on? And that's how this kid was living, and that's what he thought was normal, right? Like like, hey, this is what this is my current situation. Make the best of it and keep moving. And I just had this like an immense amount of respect for what this kid was willing to endure. It's like, man, if you have enough like faith and trust in me to be able to pick you up and help you, and you are going to put your entire career and your life like in my hand right now. That's when I realized, man, that recruiting, it's not about you anymore, man. It's about how to help the next guy, how to better somebody else's situation. As long as you listen and you really truly listen to what this person has to say, it was just so impactful. So that's why when I say I really thought long and hard about it, I truly did, man. So one thing leads to another. My wife and I have a conversation, and everybody here is super familiar with when orders come, right? It's like, hey, where are we going? Are we going to go where we actually thought we were going to go?
Yeah.
It was either North Carolina or Camp Pendleton again. So went back to Camp Pendleton, did that, moved my wife out here as the first time she'd ever moved away from Galveston, Texas. She was born and raised there and had her family there and everything. So that was a big move, big jump. And everybody that has kind of been in that similar type of scenario knows exactly what I mean, right? So she got a job. She ended up establishing herself in Southern California, loves it. And the whole reason why, right, was I was a H-1 aerial observer, and I was a triple gunner, call it, joke around, so you're like a trunk monkey in the back just slinging miniguns and 50 cals, right? But, I mean, man, I loved it. I had so much fun, and it was just the reason what you're doing out there and why, and I just liked that, it's high pace and you're doing something different all the time, and I really missed that. So I had to kind of make the choice, right? Like recruiting and what I found to be a passion for myself. Which one do you choose, right? Do you choose this flying passion that you've had because you've been doing it for a lot longer, or this newfound one, right? So like, how do you make the choice? So inevitably, my wife and I talked, and it was, if we take these orders to Pendleton, if you want to go back and be a career recruiter, we'll do it. That's where it went. So that's how I got back to California. That's like my snapshot of my military background, and moving on, right? It's like, as soon as I checked into that new unit is where this whole 32-month ATP and 320 type started. So
Wow.
it's a ride now.
I love that. I would be remiss, right, in standard staff officer language. I would be remiss. Columbus, Ohio. Are you a Buckeyes fan?
Absolutely.
Sorry. Are you a the Ohio State University?
Yeah.
My wife went to the Ohio State University, and so we're big Buckeye fans in the Chapin house. Yeah, that's great. And then recruiter Austin at BreakTurn, he was a recruiter too, so I'm sure you guys would hit it off because he recruited for a while for the Army. So, but I love that, and I love the even already in your story, the mentality of othership. That's a word. Of, yeah, you have your own goals and you have your own passions, but at the end of the day, right, it's about helping others. It's about community. And I love that because that's so important. And not to discourage folks from pursuing their goals. That's fine. You should pursue goals. Though at a certain point in time, if your goals don't include others, they're gonna be empty. There's not gonna be fulfillment there. So I love that. And then you mentioned you talk with your wife. Which I'm not a marital counselor, but I would say that's huge for people who are, as we go through your story, E2A, 32 months, like your story started with, I talk with my wife, I talk with my spouse, my family, and that's huge because it's not just you, and we'll get into your story in a minute, but knew and realized that you're not going about it alone. One of my phrases, I'm a broken record. No one got where they are by themselves, and there are no exceptions. So bringing your wife in early is huge because they're the ones who are going to be there throughout, and they're going to be the ones that you would expect to be there at the end. So getting their buy-in is huge. So I love that. So looking at your post here, let me pull it up again. So you wrote here, decided to make the transition after my last deployment. I recently deployed and came home last year from the MEU, and your daughter was 2, and you decided to do this thing. I want to know all about the thing. I have so many questions because the E2As, the non-military aviators that get the shortcut, it's like, I feel like it's such a mountain to like, I want to do this, but goodness gracious. And you did it so fast. And the speed, I don't want to say it's definitely a piece of it. And I'm interested in the speed, but doing the thing is almost more interesting because there's so many folks that look at this goal and they're like, that's such a high mountain. So like, let's start telling your story to kind of encourage folks who are looking at that mountain, and let's hear what you did to maybe kind of get them going. So
yeah, man, for sure. So it all started, man. I checked into this unit that I was talking to you about, and checked in, and the almost the worst thing that people want to hear, or best, depends on your perspective, I guess, but was, hey, we're ramping up for deployment. We're going on tri-sided deployment, and for everybody that's familiar with that, and if you're not, it means that your unit's just gonna chop up into 3 different ways. Might not see each other for a year to year and a half, and once you come back, it's like you barely remember who everybody is, right? Like it's a huge unit. These units are about 500 people deep, so it's a pretty big deal. So I checked into my new squadron in October, and then I was told, like, hey, we got a deployment 1 year out. So I was pretty, grateful for that amount of time. That's not typically normal in the military. If you have a whole year in advance, so that I looked at that year as like, this is like the year, my year. This is how much time I have if I want to make a change. And man, like I was telling you with recruiting, like all these other things, like I didn't really know what was I going to do. And this was the first time I deployed with a daughter, and all that is just an entire different dynamic. Just mentally, you're already, you almost kind of like fault yourself in a way, right? With like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna do this? Like when you go home, how am I gonna tell my wife that I'm gonna leave for, we always say like 6-7 months, but in the back of your mind that, dude, this could stretch out for a year. You could get extended. You never know. And we know all these uncertainties, but you can't verbalize that. And it's so hard the way that you communicate like a big thing that's going to take you away from your family is monumental. So came home, told my wife, and it was actually an odd way to do it, man. My wife and I, we're pretty big into CrossFit, and we have a garage gym. And I waited until after we were done working out.
She's exhausted, lying on the floor.
Yeah. So we had like a little pack and play for my 2-year-old, and we're just getting after it, I waited till after. I was like, hey, I got to tell you something. And then, everybody knows how those conversations go after that. It's emotional. It's raw, right? Like, you just told your spouse something that they knew was possible, but it's not real until you make it real, right? It's like, so that was tough. And that initial conversation in my garage is where that's when it flipped a switch in my head. Like, you gotta change something. And I specifically talk about that reason because it's more relatable to everybody than they think. There's passions that people have, and there's goals and like all these ambitions that you have, but what do you do when you don't know, right? I could have been a recruiter. I could have been, I could put in an officer package, try to go warrant officer. I don't know, man. Like I was trying to think of everything, and I didn't know what that initial. I knew that something was wrong right there. That I knew that, hey, if I keep going down this path for 10 more years, this conversation is going to happen a lot more times, and I don't want to feel this way again. And that's when my flip switched. So I had started talking to my wife about, what are we going to do? Like I could go back to recruiting. I could try to figure out all this other stuff in the military, but at the end of the day, that means that I'm going to be in for a lot longer. If I do a commissioning package, it's 10 more years, like right on top, right? All I knew was that I had a passion for helping people. I had a passion for flying, and I had a very great newly found passion to not leave my family again. Right? So between those 3, you have to make a decision. And I remember the next day I went to work and I called my old recruiting instructor, like our senior listed guy, and I was like, hey man, look, like, can I make it back out to Houston? Is there any way I could do that? And to most people, that's like, like nobody would ever make that phone call. So he was honestly caught off guard. Like, what? Like, you really want to, you want to do that? Well, we can try, but you're going to have to do this deployment. I'm like, oh no, that's why I'm calling you, right? Like, not trying to deployment dodge or get out of it, but how do I do that? And the most pressing reason why was that we found out that my mother-in-law had Alzheimer's. So it was dementia, and at first it was aphasia, turned into dementia, now Alzheimer's. So that was happening like very rapid, and it all happened at the same time. And if anything's gonna happen, it's gonna come in threes, right? So found out that was going on, and we'd kind of been dealing with like the aphasia and dementia aspect of it for a little while. But when it turned into Alzheimer's, that's when we knew like we have to make it back to Houston. So when people ask the why, right? Well, why did you do all this stuff? I knew that I had 1 year. I knew I didn't want to leave my family. I don't know a lot about very much, but I know a little bit about flying. So, let's roll with that. I know I missed to fly, and I came back and I loved it. So I was driving home from work that very same day, and I saw a sign on a side of a hangar that said "Learn to fly here." I'm no kidding, dude. I'm so serious. So like, I drove to that sign, and I took a professional picture of that sign, like way later. And I drove up to it, and I'm like trying to figure out, it's like, is this a flight school? Like, what's going on? Sure enough, it was an AeroGuard flight school that had just closed, but the doors were still open. Still had an iPad to go like sign yourself up and everything. So I texted my wife, who lived right around the corner. Hey, bring me a shirt and a pair of pants. She shows up, and that's how we started our conversation about flight school. I'm not kidding. I'm so serious, dude. It was like
just a billboard, like with the Vegas lights around it, with the arrows pointing at it, and you're just like, "What's that?" And it's like, "Oh, I guess."
Yeah,
that's crazy, man.
It was wild.
So you that's it. I appreciate those points because what your why is, it'll change what your goals are or what your focus is, and that's normal. That's fine. It's good, right? I have a similar story. I was hook, line, and sinker, Army helicopters, like volunteering for deployments, just trying to go, and then I had my first kid. Not that I didn't love my wife. I loved my wife. She was teaching at the time, and we had great balance. But then when that kid, man, those kids, thinking about being gone for a year, and when they're young, a year is huge. The development, between ages 2 and 3 or 6 and 7, whatever it is, like, is huge, and that's good. It's normal. I'm not the police of what's normal, what's not. But if someone's going through this season of, I was doing this was my passion, I still kind of want to do this, but it's kind of changing. Like, hey, just sit in that space for a minute, because it's very much okay to change your desires and your passions, right? And then the thing that you said after that, it's key. And James O'Neill mentioned it from Raven Career: strategy before tactics. Strategy before tactics. And what that means to me, and what I think you just talked about, was you didn't just immediately go, I'm going to do this, and run over and like go jump in a plane. You didn't even really know, kind of. The strategy came with like, do I want to do 10 more years? Do I want to do this? Do I want to have the risk of moving around 5 more times? Do I want to maybe have to deploy again? Like, I don't know. Let's look at the strategy. Let's figure out what we want to do or not want to do. We'll start there. And then this billboard from the ages came, and you made the jump. So your decision, and I feel like there's going to be a theme here again, because we didn't, like, standard podcast. We didn't have questions that I sent you. Like, this is just straight raw conversation. It seems to me, based off of what I read, that you're an action taker, and so you chose to take action when you saw the billboard. You didn't write in your phone. You didn't take a picture of it. You didn't just drive past him like, that'd be cool. You stopped. You absorbed it. You consumed that information. You called your wife, asked her to bring you clothes, and you went and you did. Was it a discovery flight is what you did?
Essentially, yeah. I walked into a flight school and scheduled a discovery flight pretty much right after. So
yeah, so you did the action, which is huge. So go on from there. What did you fall in love with it? Were you like, what was the, and
Yeah.
it's okay if you didn't. I'm just curious. Some people are like, oh, I fell in love. And other people was like, like it was okay. Like, what was your response to that?
Man, I honestly, I was so taken back from just like my background, just being in Hueys for so long, and when I showed up, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. That's the first time I'd ever seen like a 1970s like 172. I opened the door, I was like, dude, you guys fly these things? Like, are you
The door
serious?
creaks open. There's like cut leather.
Yeah.
It
It
smells
was
like
like shag
cigarettes
rug.
inside. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, what?
Everybody's experience. Oh yeah. Is this thing
That
fly?
was
Is this
my
okay to fly? Like,
yeah. Because I'd
yeah.
been in maintenance for so long. I was a flight liner, power plants, rotors, all that. I'm looking around this thing. I was like, what? Um, it was amazing. So I got in and I loved it, man. I had a super good instructor. God bless him. He's an awesome guy, and he was able to deal with me for as long as he did, right? So, no, it was one of those things where you go up and you realize like there's a turning point. And this is like kind of an E to A point, was especially the guys that have been crew chiefs before, or even maintenance and whatever you're doing, right? Like everybody has a huge piece of the pie that when it comes, and guys hear that all the time, right? Like just being in the background for maintenance for so long, like, everybody has a piece of it, but you truly do. And you realize how much of your career is in your own hands whenever you take the leap of faith to do something that's completely outside of your comfort zone. And something that I always tell people is if you are not uncomfortable, you're not pushing yourself, meaning you're not progressing. You're just staying in your own little box, and you're just doing this little, circle of life every single day. And if you're comfortable, that means that you're settled. Then if you're not okay with where you're at right now and you're not uncomfortable, like something in the equation's not working and you have to make the change. So for me, what that was like, hey, I'm comfortable in the military. I've been in the military for a while at this point, but I want to make a change, and I know I'm comfortable. But just knowing how that dynamic works from just being a recruiter, I was very successful at what I was doing. Was I have to push myself outside of a comfort zone? But how do you do that, right? So, and more importantly, why? Why are you pushing yourself to be uncomfortable in the first place? Okay, well, think about the basics. I know what this deployment entails. I know I'm going to be away from my family. I don't think that like my wife and I are done having kids at this point. So I know I want to grow my, like, there's lots of wants that I want, and then there's a lot of wants that the Marine Corps wants, and they are not the same, right? So to be able to make
Weird.
what I want, there's something's got to shift. And just another piece about my background, very lucky and very fortunate to have a mentor. My father's an American Airlines captain. Never interviewed with American though, so all those guys listening out there, he was an America West guy originally. Survived all those merges, and he has been invaluable in this entire like life lesson for me and just career change. And I remember the next day I just called my dad and I was like, hey man, like, this is what I think I'm gonna do. He's like, I've only been telling you that since you were 17 when you went to the recruiting office, like type thing. It's like, oh well, they, 14 years later, I'll tell you you're right. So
He's like, welcome. You're like, well, now it's my idea, so it's different. Before it was your idea, now it's my idea. So
exactly, right. So I told him, and to my surprise, he was obviously very, very supportive, and he wanted me to do it. But he was the first person, and that was the first time I'd ever heard this. Was like what else do you want from me? It's like it's great, that's awesome that you want to do that. Well, go do it then, right? It wasn't that like one of those like emotional like super supportive of like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy. It's like, and I didn't realize why until all this stuff was over. Was private pilot is the initial step to doing any of this stuff. Then you got to figure out if you even want to do this, if this is something that is in it for you. If people get all, into like the hiring and the jobs and the money and all this stuff, and although that's super important and that's out there, if you're not in this for you want to do this and this is your real passion to do it, and you have something driving you that's like actually an emotional drive that's going to make the change and make a difference for yourself, I'd hate to say it to somebody, but man, the odds of making it all the way through to the end are a lot more slim than you would think. So I took the conversation with him, and I sat and chewed on it, right? Like, and probably a typical thing, right? Where guys that overthink stuff. And I was just thinking, I was like, huh, all right, well, I'm going to give this a shot. And I took that was my first, like, kind of, excuse my language, but kind of kick in the ass to like, all right, man, this is like a challenge in a way. Like we're doing this. So I just went to that discovery flight. I talked to that instructor and just started building a schedule and around my active duty schedule, right? Which is more so the one of the things that I'd really like to talk about with the guys and gals that are in this group is we having a full-time job and then adding on an entire career change is no small feat, right? And I see it a lot more now, especially flight instructing and just being able to talk with people. How do you do that? And that's something that that was that moment in time, the conversation with my dad, and then trying to realize, hey man, like, this is something, if you really want to do it, you're gonna have to buckle down, and there's a lot of hours on the clock, and you know what I mean? You're gonna have to fit time in that. And that's when I realized basically the timesheet and the amount of time that you have in a day is what I did. So if I go to work and my maintenance meeting is 7 o'clock in the morning and you're done at 5, those are obligated amounts of time during the day that you have to be at work, right? Or you're doing something, you're on the flight schedule, or like whatever you're doing. So all the hours that are on the opposite side of that, right? Mandatory time that you need to be at work or whatever you need to go do, that's your time. And that's your time to divvy up between like your family, like you got to spend time with them, got to spend time with your wife, got to spend quality time with your kids. And then there's going to be some windows of opportunity in that for you to focus on studying and getting into flight school and stuff like that. So that's what I did. And I just created a very systematic approach towards it to be able to really, really narrow down and not allow any white space time in the day or any unproductive time.
I love that, and I'll interrupt you here. I think that the part that I love is that you talked with your dad. Your dad happened to be in the airlines, right? But the point there for folks is the whole networking piece. Networking in 2024, social media, chat GPT, internet, like, okay, LinkedIn, that's kind of networking, right? But it's not as valuable as talking with a human. And I encourage people to talk with someone who's doing or has done what you want to do and go talk with them. And RTAG is a great place for that because most everybody, right? It's the theory of reciprocity, meaning if someone reaches out to you and says, hey, I got a couple questions. It's my background, former military. Would you mind answering a few questions? I can't think of anybody that would say no. And if they do say no, then they don't belong. And I don't want to be a part of that. There's so many people that want to help. So reaching out to your dad, or if your dad isn't in the airlines or knows about it, reaching out to someone who is and seeking that information. And it's funny that you said his response wasn't like, yeah, it was more like, okay, like he knows what's ahead of you and you but you don't know for sure. And he kind of went into help mode instead of like, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? He was like, hey, I'm here to help. I'm ready to help. And I love that. And I like how you highlighted too that you deliberated, which is important, but then you took action, which is the phrase, action beats deliberation. You can deliberate till the cows come home, but at a certain point, until you decide to act, it's not going to be there. And you made a plan, right? There's a quote I had someone share with me from the book. I think it's called Grow and Expand. And it really has application here that I'll share with folks. The quote goes, when you talk about stuff, it's a dream. When you envision it, it's exciting. When you plan it, it's possible. And then when you schedule it, it's real. So for you to schedule it, put it on the calendar, talk with a CFI, go to a flight school, schedule it. Like we scheduled this call, right? When you schedule it, it becomes real. And I love that because what you do with your time is huge. I always say there's the 3 E's with time. And it's not exclusive. I'm an idiot. I made up this stuff. a while ago, and I like it. The 3 E's are: you can entertain yourself. Video games, football games, social media, books. Not all bad. Everyone needs to entertain. Everyone needs to relax, okay? The second E is educate. Studying, reading books, networking, right? And the third E is employ. So what you do to make money, right? And those can all be interweaved amongst themselves. And the time available in a day, and this is hijacked from Alex Ramosi. I like watching his stuff. I think he's got great content. We work from 9 to 5. In the military, it's like from 8 to 5 or whatever. But like, just go with me on this. It's from 9 to 5, right? What are you doing from 5 to 9? That's 4 hours. What are you doing from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m.? That's another 4 hours. That's 8 more hours in a day that you have available to you. What you do with that time, the 3 E's, is critical. Now, we have to be on guard against, hey, I still got a family. I still have chores. I still have to work out. I still have to sleep, all those things. But I feel like if you take a deliberate moment to look at your day or even a season of life, right? Treat it like a deployment. I'm going to spend the next 3 months and I'm going to do X. How am I going to do that? Well, brother, you have 8 hours of time on either side of the workday. Figure it out. And so when you said that, I'm like, yes. Because a lot of folks say, I don't have time. Or they'll ask me, how do you have the time? And I'm like, how do you not have time? Like, I don't know when you wake up, and I'm not trying to be this hardcore guy. I wake up at 4 and do 1,000 push-ups. Nah, man. But like, if it's a season and you want to push hard for 3 months, for 6 months, for a year, or for you 32 months, bro, you got 8 hours a day, 7 days a week available to you outside of work to pursue that. So I love those points. I love that. So you talk me through, you kind of touched on it, but kind of go a little bit deeper on, I'm kind of trying to envision, were you exhausted? Because if you're working military all day and you still got a family and you have weekends, but you're doing all this stuff, like, how did that work? Did you wake up early and study? Like, what were your study habits? Did you fly 3 times a week, 5 times a week? Did you fly on the weekends? Like, how did you balance all of that?
Yeah, man. So my initial thing was just from being in, like, having just a very, very, like, a minimal aviation background, I'd say, flying in the back. It kind of showed me a lot, right? Like CRM, just mishap reviews, case studies, different things like that. And that I didn't know a whole lot, but what I do know is that don't fly tired, don't be extremely fatigued, like, don't do these types of things, right? So I was pretty aware of that, and the way I scheduled my week was that Monday through Friday were my like ground academics types of study days, right? So wake up early, study, right? And sometimes like I'd be completely like lying to you if I told you, at 3:30 in the morning every day I woke up, right? Like that's not real. Like nobody's a robot. Like we're still people, right? It was solely based off of how much traffic did I have to get through when I got home. What time did I actually get home? Ended up buying a motorcycle, commuting, splitting lanes of traffic in California like maniac, right? Did that to be able to save like 30 minutes of time on my way home. To me, 30 minutes was huge. Like it sounds nuts to say that the way that you drive to work or the way you commute, it was even a thought in the process. And I'm dead serious. I did that. Got a motorcycle, saved time in the morning, saved time on the way back. Got home, and whatever time I got home at was like a sanctuary. My wife and I were going to work out together. I was talking about how we have that home gym set up that cut time out, right? To where we didn't have to like go work out, take the kids with us or whatever, right? We got home, that was our like bonding time. I actually met my wife in a CrossFit gym, so that's kind of why, right? It's like we love, that was something that we just love to do together. So we'd work out. That was the time that we had together, and we'd make dinner. From that time, man, I'm so serious. Like we had this agreement, like unwritten, unspoken rule that once I'm like studying, like that was it, right? So I'd spend a little bit of time with my daughter and roll right into it. So it was a little bit easier for me most days to study later in the evening than wake up earlier to commute for work, just because to be at where I needed to be by 7, I would have to be out the door by 5:30. So the amount of stuff that I was getting between, I tried it a lot, right? Like waking up at 4 and study for an hour and a half, which inevitably I ended up having to do anyways. just what I was retaining wasn't as much, right? So I was retaining more when I got home, have a fresh workout, like get your endorphins going, right? And then eat and then study until, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. It was easier for me to do that way until you just couldn't take it anymore and then wake up early. So my Monday through Friday schedule, depending on what was going on, that's how I had to do that. So what it allowed me to do, though, was on weekends for Saturdays and Sundays, I would fly 2 flights a day on each day. So I'd schedule my first flight at 8 o'clock in the morning. Then I'd do an 8 to 10 or 8 to 11, whatever we needed to do that day. Meaning that if I studied till 1 o'clock in the morning, like I got a ton, like more sleep than I'd gotten all week, I got on Friday night. My Friday nights were so awesome, man. Like I was so excited for it on the weekends. It's like, oh my God, dude, like I'm going to get more sleep and I'm going to feel so much better. I'd go fly, and whatever time I had in between the break is when I would either study more or I was already in the flight school. You see what I'm saying? So and when you're learning and fostering yourself in an environment where a lot of like-minded people and everybody has a common goal, it's a lot easier to stay on track and stay focused. So that's a piece of advice that I would always give people is that some people will study all night long. They'll wake up early. Like they'll try this routine, but they get so distracted because like emotionally you're tired, right? Like if your daughter's crying or your son's crying or like, daddy, I want to play, or mommy, I want to do this, right? Like when your kids are doing that, you have this like bone wrenching, like I have to do that. And it pulls you away from something that you're trying to focus on. So if you do have the ability to put yourself in an environment that's going to like slingshot and catapult you through, you have more resources around you, right? So like I would call people, like guys I'd flown with before. That's when I started like doing the networking thing with RTAG, and I'd just pay for ground, do whatever. I'd do whatever I needed to do to understand a concept that maybe I wasn't 100% getting at the time. And that's how I learned about Nick's podcast, Ready for Pushback. If you haven't subscribed into that or networked and reached out, Ready for Pushback is probably one of the most invaluable podcasts I've ever heard of. And just the fact that you can reach out and just talk to these people absolutely blew my mind, right? That's when I started doing that.
Nick is amazing. Nicholas, I love you. Nick is actually, he is a knight. He is knighted. So he is Sir Nick. But no, I agree. Nick and I were in ground school together, and he's also a fellow Blackhawk driver. And he is great. He's a great human. He's an amazing human, and his podcast is gold. I mean, the information that's coming out of there, the amount of time, the amount of time and effort and resources that he puts into that is a testament to who he is as a person, because it takes a lot of time to do what he's doing. And I'm happy that he is doing it because it's helping so many people. So yeah, shout out to Nick. Ready for Pushback. Get after it. Yeah, good.
Oh man, yeah, it was clutch. Like especially when you're a new guy trying to figure out like how to do this stuff. Like sure, like if I needed to like call my dad and ask him like, hey, what does this mean, right? Like the typical response was, well, get in the books and figure it out. It's like you'll if I tell you everything, then it's like what, that type of thing, right? So
standard pilot response, what that's translated into. That's translated into, I don't know the answer, so I'm going to tell you to look it up. And I wasn't ever an instructor pilot, but if I don't know, I'm going to say, why don't you look that up and get back to me, and I'll let you know if you're right. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh crap, I don't know. So,
yeah,
I love that.
That's funny. In all seriousness, man.
Yeah, go.
No, in all seriousness, it was one of those times where like the breaks in between those grounds, and then I would study and do my second flight, right? So like whatever I messed up for flight number 1, like review everything, study in the books, get everything down packed, like, get the ground out of the way and like get the procedures out of the way, and then roll into the next one as if it's a brand new flight. Right. And that was one thing that when I first started was really difficult. If you had a bad, flight 1 and you roll into the second line of the day, how do you not carry over like negative into another flight? Because if you do that, you're just going to have one of those days where it's like, what am I even doing? You're going to get even more discouraged, right? Like the student themselves is going to feel like, is this even for me? Like, do I even have what this takes, right? So something that I would give as advice, because people hear this, right? Like, oh, that's a great idea. Like Monday through Friday study like crazy, and then Saturday and Sunday like make some sort of like flight schedule for yourself, if you would, right? Like you create these like codes for yourself in a way, and like a TNR. But if you carry like you can never dwell on a bad landing, you can never dwell on a bad maneuver. You can't do these types of things, right? Like because you know that the next one is going to be completely different, new circumstances, probably a different plane, maybe a different crew, maybe a completely different airport. Like who knows, man? But if you carry these things together, it's like, oh, that's behind me. It's in the past. I can't change whatever happened and whatever's behind me. But what I can do is take it, learn from it, take all the things that people are telling you, and apply the fundamentals to the next one, right? So that's, I guess, in a nutshell, how that was effective for me. And how that personally worked for just my normal schedule.
Yeah, I love that. There's a couple things you mentioned which I wanted to highlight, which I love, is you started by saying, I can relate to this in my own way, but you did the analysis down to the minutes of how long it took you to get somewhere. So much so that you bought a motorcycle to cut off time with traffic in where you were living. And so the kind of phrase, the challenge there to some folks is, what are you willing to do? Are you willing to do the hard thing to get where you want to go? So what's a hard thing? Well, I don't know. That's each person can define what the hard thing is, but are you willing to do the hard thing to get where you want to go, right? And the second question is, it's been big for my life because I'm guilty. I think everyone's guilty of it, but I'm guilty of it, is what are you doing to avoid doing what you should be doing? So for me, it's, I should be studying for a current, right? But what am I doing to avoid doing what I should be doing? Well, I got to cut the grass. I got to get the oil changed. I got to fix the garage door. I got to reconnect with Bobby. All valid things, all things that are, I would say, perfectly justified. That, yeah, those things do need to get done. But at a certain point, what are you doing to avoid doing what you should be doing, which is the hard thing, or, studying or whatever. And so I love that. I think your testament to your study habits, I want to highlight that. We said before, action beats deliberation. And the reason that's important is action means you're headed in the right direction. You're not just sitting static, right? The second thing is, until you take action, you don't know per se what is going to be that struggle point. So for you, you said in the morning, you tried it, action, and it didn't really work. The retention wasn't there. So you're like, cool. You learn that wasn't ideal. You could do that from time to time, but generally speaking, it was better in the evening, right? And you don't learn that until you're in the arena, until you're, hey, are you going to be good at snatches? I should be okay with it. Okay, cool. Have you done a snatch? No. Until you start doing snatches, you realize, oh, okay, I got to tape my pinkies because the bar is pressure on the outside, or maybe I don't have shoulder mobility. You're not going to know any of that until you start snatching, right? For a CrossFit analogy. And I had a similar thing to your story. I was in BNAV in Green Platoon, and we were staying up late, right? Get limited sleep in BNAV in Green Platoon. And it was super late, and we were getting coffee in 5 hours, and Red Bull, and you're staying awake. Your whole planning cell's there. And it was like maybe 2 a.m, and I was tired, man. But you're with the boys. Let's keep going, right? So I plotted my points for my route that I was going to fly the next night, and finished it up, did my planning, left, completed with the task. Okay. I came in the next evening, and before we went to go fly, I checked my map. I checked my time distance heading card just to be refamiliarize myself with where I was going. Those three or 4 points that I had plotted and did the azimuth and the time and the fuel and all that stuff for BNAV, all 4 of them were wrong. I plotted them incorrectly. And from that point on, I told myself, if I get to the point of like fatigue, like bad, like I can't focus, I'm kind of nodding off, I'm dropping stuff, right? Absolutely. I'm cutting off. Why? Because if I go further than that, I'm only going to be making mistakes, right? So to your point of, studying for till 1 or 2 in the morning, like, yeah, that's definitely doable. But to your point, the awareness of like, hey, where are you at? Do you have that retention? Are you making mistakes? Because at a certain point, there's a law of diminishing returns in that regard. And don't copy your buddy. If your buddy stays up till 2 and or if your buddy wakes up early and it works for them and it doesn't work for you, fine. Do your thing as long as you have that balance. But no, but I love that. I think people are afraid to fail. I think it's an inherent human nature thing. You had said if you have a bad landing, don't let it bother you. That should be like a t-shirt, because that's a life lesson there, whether it's for adults or for kids. It's like, you're going to fail. And it's like, we should be trying to fail faster, because every time you fail, if you harp on it and you let it get in the way of progressing, like it's not going to work out for you. So, but no, I love that. So continue with your story. So what'd you do? So did you get all your ratings, single engine, private? Did you got your commercial, multi-engine? Like, how did you progress through that? And if you don't mind, I think now would be a good time to talk about that. The elephant in the room is, how'd you pay for all this stuff? Did you do part 61, part 141? So what was your ratings progression? Maybe stop pre-ATP, and we'll pause there. What'd you get your ratings and your time build? And then how did you fund it, if you will?
No, absolutely. So right around this whole, I guess, like time frame wise, I go back to how I was talking about how we had like the sanctuary year, like 1 year from the time that you check in to the time that you deploy. This is how much time you have. So that personally for me is what was driving the decisions that I was making, right? As far as like, the sense of urgency was time. I talk to people every single day when it comes to like, how do I do flight school? How do I start this? How do I pay for it? How do I fund this, right? And it all comes down to time and money. You can't really have both. You're either going to do these things really, really, really fast, and it's going to cost a lot of money, or you can save a whole lot of money, and it's going to take a whole lot of time. But those two don't really like blend together. So for myself, I chose to time was the most urgent thing for me. So I decided, a private pilot, generally everybody does it part 61. I did it part 61, and just kind of like fast forward through that. Like I did private 61, I did 141 for instrument commercial, I did 141 CFI. Now, there's kind of some caveats inside of that people can do, and just to not avoid like all the technicalities. I'll just tell you what I did, and someone says that that's wrong or whatever. I mean, it worked for me, man. So 61 self-funded, right? 141 I used the vocational version of the GI Bill. At the time, it's like right around $15,800 or something like that, $15,000 an academic year. But the thing that sucks is that the 15,000 or whatever and some change that you get is good for your instrument and your commercial certificate. So that was not going to be enough to pay for that, right? So I tried to maximize the funding. And people that are unfamiliar with cost, right? Like generally a 141 commercial certificate takes about 120 hours of flight time. You can just kind of beer math it, right? $200 an hour times 120, a lot of money, a lot more than 15 grand. So, and plus your instrument like your add-on or rating is going to happen on top of that, right? So what I did is I was able to talk with an instructor that I do pretty well. And him and I hit it off, man. Like we were, after we'd go fly, grab a beer together, talk. We had very similar scenarios and stuff. And it was cool. Like just because you have a CFI at your school doesn't mean like they're not your teacher in high school, man. Like you can talk to them. They're people too, right? Like you can get to know people, network, figure out like their background and whatnot. And he was willing to work with me, man. So we dissected the FAR-AM to figure out like exactly how much simulator time can you apply to your instrument. And then pull the 141 approved certificate for that flight school. What is their FAA 141 VA approved instrument rating? What is the syllabus and what is the hour breakdown? Because inside of that syllabus, it'll tell you exactly how much can be sim and what's mandated to be in the airplane. So for me, I did my instrument rating at the FAA minimum that was approved for that flight school was 35 hours. I took my check ride at 35.1. And I did it literally, man. Like that was probably one of the most like, balls to the wall type things I'd ever done. But we did in the sim, and anything that was, like if you're learning something, learn it in the sim. If you're gonna apply it in the plane. That's the best advice that I could give somebody. And if you work with an instructor and get to know somebody pretty well, and you're like, hey man, like I gotta try to maximize as much as I can get out of this one allotment of money that I could possibly do. And so that's the scenario that I was in, and that's what I did. And that CFI, he's doing great, flying for SkyWest right now, loves life, lives here in San Diego and drives to Palm Springs, sees his kids every day, right? So we had very common goals as far as like family. How do I do this? Like network, just because, the person's standing right in front of you. Some people don't understand the value of networking when it comes to, you don't have to get on your phone and like talk to people across the country. There's lots of people that are in front of you every day that are willing to help you. You just have to learn how to communicate, talk, and hey man, this is what's important to me. I understand this is what was important to you. Is there any way we can work together to where we can make this a reality for myself? If not, and whenever people get denied for something or somebody gets turned away, flip it for a referral. If you can't help me, do you know someone that may be able to help me out in this scenario? Because just because your limited network brought you to that person, you were told no, or hey man, like, we're not hiring right now, or hey dude, we don't need any more CFIs at this school. Well, if you just accept the no and walk away, then what you left on the table from the plate that you didn't eat from was, do you know anybody that may be looking for someone? Or do you know someone that might be able to help me get more simulator time or whatever, right? So that is like, for the elephant in the room, was how you can maximize what you have. Like you can't change what the GI Bill is going to give you and what you're not going to do, right? But what you can do is dissect. Just because it says 35 flight hours to get their certificate does not mean that you have to fly all 35 hours of that in the airplane, right? So that's how I saved a ton of money. I think my entire instrument add-on, I'm pretty sure just like mental Rolodexing, I think it was right around 7,000, start to finish, the whole entire thing. And that's that was huge for me at the time, just to cut the funding to apply towards commercial.
That's huge, man. And it's a huge cost savings. It's, I don't want to say cost savings as in like we're looking for a budget option, but I would say it's efficiency with the money that needs to be spent, and use the E of educate with your CFI, figuring out what could be applied in a sim that costs less to still meet that requirement. And, I like to say like you are in charge of you, meaning if you just say, hey, teach me and throw money at it, you can do that. That's an option. But it's like you are in control of you. So if you can find an advantage, right? Success is to find a steady accumulation of advantages, which you found, use that. And I love that because they're out there and you just got to network, capital N, human networking, which is huge. I think for those who may not be familiar with the terminology of Part 61, Part 141, vocational GI Bill, etc. We have another episode on the BreakTurn on our website where Adam Andres goes through what the difference is between Part 61 and Part 141, because those things matter. We won't get into it here, but if you're curious about what all this means, like go check out that episode because that's huge. But we also have online courseware. That's a new thing at BreakTurn is we have online free for veterans courseware that you can kind of put in your situation. I'm a mechanic. I have this much GI Bill. I want to go to the airlines or whatever. And it will walk you through step by step by step. It's dense, but it's all an online program. Obviously in addition to our counselors, that'll talk you through the funding piece. Part 61, Part 141, Voc Rehab, Cool Money, WIOA funds, loans. What else is out there? Scholarships. I mean, that whole courseware has 200 scholarships you could apply for. So using that E, maybe use your time to employ yourself to explore that courseware, to apply yourself to those scholarships, and get going to where you're going. But no, I love that. Okay, so you did 61, 141, CFI, got some advantages to optimize your money, not to cost savings per se. And then you finished with your commercial multi. Is that kind of accurate?
So basically what I did is I did 0 to CFI with only so I had private instrument commercial single only, and then I did CFI. So in my mind at that time, it was, what can I get that's going to get me accumulating the most amount of hours the fastest, like right now, like what's relevant today. And that to me at that time was just get to CFI. Also because of the time constraint that I had, right? To where I knew that I was deploying, that I did 0 to CFI in 10 months. And that's where a lot of the people that I talk with is like, how did you, some people take 10 months just to do their private, but it all goes back to the schedule, the study habits. Like if you ask my wife, man, it's like I didn't take a day off for like almost 3 years, right? When it came down to this type of stuff, usually guys and girls are using their leave days for, go on vacations or go golfing or do whatever. I would take blocks of leave when I needed it. Maybe like a ramp up before a check ride, right? If you know that your check ride's scheduled for a certain day, like how valuable would 3 or 4 days of having nothing else to do between 7 and 4, right? And the commuting and all that other time in between, like to me, that was like, man, this time is worth gold. So I would just strategically put days of leave around times where I needed that the most, right? So for somebody that's trying to do private pilot right now, if you were to take 3 to 5 days of leave to be able to solely focus on your, solo cross country stuff, you could get that done in a couple of days, right? Vice like just trying to fly on your weekends only, you could string that all the way out to 6 months and a lot of money behind that. So that's where, to me, like time and money, where you can't have both at the same time, right? I would use the time to save money when it came to taking leave. So I did the CFI route. I finished that in October of 2022, and I deployed November of 22. So
Just in the nick of time.
yeah, man, I was so stressed out. It was actually October 23rd, and then we left like second week in November or something like that. So it came down to it, and I had 2 or 3 weeks to be able to just hang out with the family and just chill for a little bit, man. So it all worked for me as far as like the timeline went, and I kind of looked at it like a mission letter, like private took me about 10 weeks to start to finish. Instrument was 8 weeks. My commercial was about 2 months or so, 2 or 3 months, and then CFI was right about the same. And the way that I kind of maximize the CFI thing for other people that are curious, most 141 and like approved programs, it's actually a lot of flight time and more than you probably need. And this is where I was saying, like, some people might say this is like, might be right or might be wrong, but just because you start something 141 doesn't mean that an examiner is not going to take a Part 61 endorsement. So I was taking the 141 until I was good, because 25 flight hours in the right seat for CFI, like I personally didn't need that. 50 hours of ground, that's a lot of money. You only got so much to take, right? So once I was good, once I was ready to pass, I'd got endorsed and found the DP, took the check ride, and I saved myself probably about $5,000 on a GI Bill by doing that. So that's one of those things where it's a plug-in where, when you get a CFI certificate, it doesn't say anywhere on that whether you finished at 61 or 141. So go get it done and move on. Deployed.
That's wild. Real quick, before you deploy, because that's kind of this next part there. I have a question here for you. So you raged hard with your time, which I love, man. I definitely believe in balance, but I also believe that you have to be willing to commit to the hard thing. And not that I'm a glutton for punishment, but sometimes in life, it's like, hey, you got to wake up in the morning and be like, this is going to suck for 3 months. And it is what it is, and let's get through it, right? In that season of time, were there days where you had like a down day or a couple down days where you were either tired or you weren't performing and you were kind of like, man, like, I don't know, this is for me, like I'm just kind of struggling. And if so, how did you recover from that? How did you go from, I'm going. It's like, man, this sucks. And then getting back on the horse. Like, how would you do that?
That's a great question, man. So to be completely honest with you, everybody that goes through this it's like you hit a wall, and sometimes that wall is like weekly, sometimes it's a monthly, sometimes every time you get in the sim and you're about to go through a sim ride, like you never know, but those walls are there, dude. Trust me, for me, it was mainly trying to figure out like flying at night, and that's when I would have that man, I gotta really adjust my schedule around and be able to fit that in because, dude, Monday through Friday, like you have all these things that you have to do during the day, and if you stay in the military for a good while, like you have lots of requirements and demands, and this needs to happen, and it's not just that you're going in your own little world, right? Like you have 40 people that you're working with, and what might not be your personal issue, like you got somebody out there that is dealing with maybe a divorce, like maybe like something like life changing, like family death or something like that, right? And you're just trying to do everything you can to help that person. So you feel like you're going like 10 different directions, and you only have so much to give. But the thing that I could never give away was that if you're a staff NCO in the Marine Corps, you're expected to give them everything that you have. So although you have this thing that you're working on back here, like your number one job in the military is to do exactly what you signed up to do, man. Like, you know what I mean? And we're not all I guess we're all super aware of what that entails and what that can be. So that's when I would start to kind of feel like I was pretty thin, right? Where there's constantly like detachments that are going out, like, hey, we're sending 6 weeks to Yuma, 6 weeks to this, or we're going to these ranges and all that stuff. And if it was something that was going to pause my flight training, at the time I was so focused on that I almost took that as like I can't I can't allow something to cause a training delay, because in my mind, man, like you just have this master plan, like a flight schedule and all this stuff that you're trying to like do for yourself. The times where I would feel the most thin is when I came home and I didn't really have anything left to give, right? And that unfortunately fell on my family. So it's not that like I felt like I couldn't do anymore. I was just so tapped out, and there was times where I'd come home and I'd have dinner with my wife, and you just feel like you're sitting there and you feel like you're just like this potato, dude. Like you're just like emotionless. You have nothing to say. You're exhausted. Like you're totally spent. But dude, you have to flip that switch, and man, like it's not about you anymore. And everybody else that's around you is going to either reap the benefit of the work that you're putting in and have this awesome life and never have to deploy again and all these reasons why you wanted to do this. But that's when I realized, and that switch flip for me was sitting there, and my daughter, she was 1.5, not even 2 yet. And all she wanted, man, was, I want everything that you can give me 100% all the time. And I realized, dude, like that's something that no matter how tired you are, no matter what you think you feel, no matter how, you know what I mean? Like how thin you think you are, you still have more left to give. And that can't fall, like on your family in that way. That's where people have this huge point of friction is at work, everybody's happy. The flight school, everybody's happy. Your logbook, everything's going great and you're getting where you want to be. But when you come home and nobody's happy, that's when things are going to start compounding fast. So for me, it just happened, 1 or 2 times. And my wife and I had that conversation, man, where it's like, this is right now. This has only been 6 months and I'm this far into this, and this is where I'm trying to go. And having the clear line of communication with your significant other, that's what did it for me, because it turned it into like, I'm not happy with how much you're gone, or I feel like you're deployed, right? Because you're home, but you're not home, right? It'd almost just be easier if you were, you know what I mean? Left for 6 months, yes. Come back and you have all that stuff done. That's where it was hard, man. Like my wife and I had to have the conversation of, this is going to go on for a little bit longer. However, right, with the type of communication that we had, we would talk about it daily, every day. It's like small little bits of that you're still just as invested in your marriage and with your kids and everything. Once you realize like, hey man, like if you're tired, take it out on yourself. If you don't have anything left to give, don't give it to yourself, but give it to everybody else around you. And my wife became extremely supportive, and she was supportive from day one. She was with me the entire way through this, and that's the best piece of advice I could give somebody is instead of looking at the scenario, it's all about perspective, right? If everybody at home is having a hard time with it, view that the same exact way as you viewed the scenario to begin with. What can you do to change the outcome? Then you're going to find the only answer is that you just have to do more.
And I love that. There's no easy way around it. I think everyone kind of experiences that where it's like, and what you said really rang home with me because I feel like that sometimes too, where it's like, I have no more to give. And, I'll come home and the girls will say, let's go to the creek. And I'm like, I've been up since 2 a.m. I flew 3 legs. I commuted home. I've been on a plane for 12 hours at this point, collectively. And I don't want to go to the creek, man. But you kind of have to make that decision where it's like, if someone is to lose, it's going to be me. And that's okay. I think setting that expectation with your family, talking, planning about it, that's huge. The understanding of, and I've talked with a lot of folks who are retiring or getting out, and they've been riding hard, rowing that boat hard for years. And then you go to your wife and you're like, oh, I need 6 more months. And she's like, dude, you've been asking for, and it's like, I get it. And really having that heartfelt conversation of, hey, I understand that you've been giving and you've been giving. I just need 6 more months because I've found it easier to kind of get back on the horse and to prevail when grace is given across the board, which means I give grace to myself, right? It's okay if you miss things. Grace given from my wife and kids and maybe some community groups like church, right? Hey, I'm not able to show up on Wednesday nights anymore because I have to study and fly. Grace is given. Hey, man, do your thing. It's easier to do all of that when there's a plan and you schedule it. Otherwise, it's indefinite. I told my wife when I was transitioning, I said, hey, we need to treat this like a deployment. I'm not going to be deployed, but for the next 6 months, right, I'm going to go up and get my flight ratings. I'm going to go back down here. I'm going to get my CFI. I'm going to go down here and get my ATP, CTP. I'm going to go out to the West Coast. I'm going to go sit in ground school. I'm going to do IOE. I'm going to sit reserve over here. I'm going to commute. Like, it's going to suck, man. Like, there's no way around it, but this is a finite time. And if that's communicated and there's a plan in place, it makes it easier because it's not this indefinite thing. And for folks who may not have that emotional investment to spend, meaning, you don't think that would go over too well. Again, I'm not a counselor, but make sure that's right first. Because if you're not right with your relationships and the people around you who are going to be supporting you, and then you're going to go asking for stuff, it's like, hey, before you start, man, I highly recommend that you get in a good space first with those around you. Because when you have those down days, you're going to need that grace. And if there's no grace to give, you're going to be in a hard spot. So, no, I love that. That's really good. So the next piece is you deployed, and then you got some more ratings or whatever. So like, tell me what happened on deployment. You were running, and then you like came to a screeching halt because now you're deployed. So what happened there? And then when you got back, what happened?
Yeah, no, for sure. So for people that or I guess unfamiliar with a MU, it's Marine Expeditionary Unit. We go on a boat, and we call them boats just to make everybody that is in the Navy super enthused about that. So I went on the boat, and we it was only a couple months. It wasn't too bad, but I was in Okinawa, Japan, and luckily, and I'd been there before, and I knew that Kadena Air Force Base, that they had an aero club there. I didn't really know how that worked, right? Like I was like, we've went there to Landon in the Kayla to get arm and de-arm and get fuel and stuff like that before we hit the range. And I remember like looking down and looking around, and I see these like 172s. I'm like, what? Like, like what? That's actually it. Like, you're looking around, look in front of you, like C5, C17s, like F-22s, and you look down and you just see like 3 172s parked there. I was like, I got to figure that out. So dropped the pin on my phone, and then on one of my weekends came around and tried to find it. And man, it's a great program over there. Awesome instructors. it's just a cool experience, right? Like fly on a 172 with FADEC and they run off a JP5, like what, right? It's insane. Like the Air Force bought these like phenomenal Redbird versions of 172s, and I was just blown away, man. The rates were great, instructors were great. It was cool to fly around there, enjoy the time. So I did that a little bit just to stay proficient, and just, I mean, whenever I had time, like at night or whenever there's like a dead space somewhere, when we're ramping up to get on the ship, I'd go over there, fly around for an hour or two, just hang out and then come back. So everybody is familiar with the like the Okinawa 31st MU. You do, it's about 6 months, right, total, but halfway into it, you're working up to get on the ship. So I had about 3 months of time where I knew that's a window of opportunity to like actually go fly and keep studying. And I took the backseat pilot with me as far as like the PDFs to be able to memorize everything I needed to know for CFII. Grabbed all the multi-engine books, and you're just constantly saturating yourself with audiobooks, reading material that's in front of you. And whenever one thing stops working for yourself, right, like switch to a different form of it. That's something that I learned pretty quickly, was that you can only read for so long until like all the words just blend together and like nothing's nothing looks like it's gonna work for you. But I switched to audio, watch YouTube videos, just constantly keeping yourself engaged with it, although you're on a deployment. Now, that's like really the only piece of advice that anybody can like take away from, like, you can't change your situation, right? You can't change the fact that you're on a ship or you're in Iraq or you're in Kandahar or wherever, right? Like, but what you can do is maintain your mentality and maintain like your proficiency, and continue to learn, because you will continually and always be a student in aviation no matter how far you go. So adopt that mindset at that point, and just fully accept the fact that that book is going to end up being your Bible for that short duration of the deployment. So that's what I did as far as staying proficient on deployment. But the thing that I'd like to speak about was I talk to people pretty frequently about finding your why, and just being emotional intelligence of, why am I even doing this? Like anybody can do something short term, right? Like if you wanted to go get your private pilot certificate and you want to do that in 3 months, you could probably do it. If you wanted to get your instrument rating, you could probably do it. But when it comes to flying, there's a pretty big difference between 250 hours being a CFI and getting to 1,500 to go get your first job. 1,250 hours of time flight instructing, that's it's not a ton, but it's just not very convenient to do when you have a 7 to 4, 7 to 5 job, and you got to slap that right on top of it. When I was on this deployment, man, I really, really had a lot of time to think, sitting on the back of the boat, just staring at the wake. It's like, man, what am I doing? You did 0 to CFI. You're just like trying to figure your life out again, right? Like when I was telling you hit the wall like weekly, like that was another wall, right? It was like, what, why am I really doing this? And I kind of had my own version of that at the time. But and people can relate to this in any branch, right? When you miss a Thanksgiving, Christmas, like a Valentine's Day, a birthday, Easter, like miss all these things in such a condensed little amount of time, man, it's like, it's bone wrenching, right? It just completely, like, for any mom or dad out there that's deployed, like it just flips you inside out. Like you don't even feel like the same person, right? Like you feel like you're just in this like machine of emotions, like where I feel this, I know this is there, but I can't act on that. And I have a completely different job I have to be focused on right now. But if you really peel it back deep down inside, you can't ignore the fact that, the feelings that you have for you're missing these events with your kids, that's normal. Like you're a human being, you're a person, you're a parent. That's something that I used to fuel the drive for myself, not in a way of like using that might be like a weird word to use for that scenario, but it fueled what I had to do. Because when I came back, I knew I only made it through, like about a third of the way, right? And 0 to CFI, right? Like that's a lot, but sure, man, like there's so much more left in the puzzle to go get a job. And I'd realized that. And in my mind, I just made it this one goal. I wanted to go be a CFI, build flight time, be able to transition out of the military and go get a good job. That's kind of what everybody wants to do. But if you look at it from like, I want to go from private pilot to, Frontier Airlines, that is such a monumental jump to try to make. You can't think of it that way. So I realized that sitting on the back of this boat, staring at the wake, and of anybody that will appreciate that comment, it's probably Nick. But um, I was sitting there and just had this, this emotional portion of my life right then and there. And I told myself and I promised my daughter that I would never do that again. And that was something that I took super personal. And man, try not to get emotional right now, but when I told my daughter, I promise you, I will not do this again. That singular point in time is what drove me to do all this stuff. So that deployment did a lot for me, man. It showed me what you need to do to be able to like indoctrinate yourself as far as constantly learning and constantly studying. But it really, truly like grabbed the why like right out of my chest. And that's where that's what people have to do, man. You have to figure that out for yourself, and that's where I found mine.
No, that's great. I appreciate you sharing that story too, because like, again, stories help people understand kind of where they are and relating to your story. And that's awesome. And I can sympathize with that, because I kind of had the same thought. I've been on a few boats in my days as well. And staring at that wake, it's therapeutic. It's like you're on a cruise ship, but it's not a cruise ship, and it allows you time to reflect. And there's some mental health benefits to this whole thing, which is being deliberately, well, if you're not deployed, even if you are, being deliberate about finding time to be still and to be quiet and to be reflective is very beneficial in today's world with phones and social media and entertainment and distraction. Rare is a time where we can just sit and just allow thoughts to bounce back and forth. And so if you're deployed, don't miss that. And if you're not, almost forcing yourself to go take a walk or go sit by the water or, sit in your car with the music off and just be still. Right. And if you're, if you like to pray and really have that reflective time, especially in a period of transition, because it's hard. And you've got all this, I don't want to say noise in a derogatory way, but you have all this noise over here with work, and you have all this noise over here with family, respectfully. You've got noise over here with friends, with community events and et cetera. And then you don't really have time to kind of sit and be still and kind of figure things out. So that's super important. And takeaway for me would be, if you're thinking about getting off the train, or if you're thinking about changing something, allow yourself that time, because it's really beneficial. So I love that. So, and I love too, I wrote on here, you were deployed, but you were flying and studying, which I understand not everyone has that luxury per se, but the point to be made here is, what are you doing to avoid doing what you should be doing? Well, I'm deployed, Landon. It's like, okay, I mean, I get that. I hear you, but do you have an iPad? Can you study? There's planes down there, right? Action beats liberation. You went and found the planes. You burned calories and brain cells to figure out how to transport yourself to there, right? So using your time deployed to study and even fly, I mean, that's wild, man. Hey, give me 1 second. I got to let someone in. We'll edit this out. Give me a minute.
Okay.
All right. But I love that, man. So you did your deployment, some great reflection there. I'll never do this again, which I love. That's powerful, man. So then kind of to wrap up the story, not that we're rushing to be done, but just kind of finish the tale, if you will. Your post said unrestricted ATP, which means as a non-military aviator, you had to get 1,500 hours, at least at the time of this recording. Who knows, it'll change in the future. And you got an you got an A320 type rating. I have questions for you. My questions are, the time building, 1,500 CFI, like that's effort, action, well done. Not like legit well done, not like well done, whatever, but like well done. Good job on that. But then why go get your ATP, CTP, and why get your A320 type? What were your reasons for that? And yeah, just go with that.
Yeah, so I came back from that deployment, and I had a couple things left to clean up, right? Still needed to do my commercial multi add-on, knocked that out pretty much right after I got back. Did CFII. Between those two, those were really the last things that I needed to I guess, like goals for myself, right? But the key was the multi-engine add-on. I did that way I could be eligible to schedule myself for ATP, CTP. And people that are unfamiliar with that, it's like, required course you have to go do. Super expensive to take your ATP written exam. Basically the easiest way to look at it, right? So time builded, and I just flew every night after work, and 6 to 6 Saturday and Sunday. Fast forward that, right? Get to about 1,000 hours, schedule yourself for CTP. I went to the Delta Training Center for CTP. Huge plug-in, awesome program. They use your GI Bill as far as like form of, receipt for payment. Pay the money up front. Awesome plug. Use your Amex Platinum card, and it'll look like it's a Delta purchase, and you're going to get 5 times the points for a $5,000 purchase. Awesome. Do it. So I ended up doing the course, and then had a couple, 100 hours to wrap up. Did that. And by this point, man, my family was like so ready for this to be over, right? Because like dad's coming home at 10 o'clock at night, every night. I'm waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Like it like if anybody, like the more walls to hit, right, were hit during those times. And it, again, man, just super clutch to communicate with your family. And so I did that. I told my wife, I was like, I'm at this point now where, I'm coming up on 1,500 hours, and I didn't really know like what should I do next, right? And it really came down to the hiring market. How do I make myself different today, right? Like if everybody in the room's got 1,500 hours, then nobody's special, right? And the easiest way for people that are in the background, right, listening, that have like a military background, it's like, dude, if everybody runs a 300, fitness test or whatever, it's like, welcome to MARSOC and Recon. Everybody here runs a 300, like that's expected. Congrats, you've qualified to walk in the room. For when you're trying to go into a hiring market, if everybody in the room has 1,500 hours, like you're not special, man. Like that's when it comes down to like how much can you network? What are you willing to do to break yourself out and continue to be uncomfortable? Because just because you felt like you make it didn't mean you did. And that's why I just followed that advice, man. My wife had, honestly, she kind of hit me with that from, 2 years ago. I remember when we talked about this, she said that, these are the things that we needed to accomplish. This is where you're at. So I talked long and hard with my wife. I talked to my dad. He was like, man, dude, you can't come up with any other plane other than a 320 to go get your first type in, like there's nothing like, in between there. What about like a King Air, right? Like you've been flying those around. Like, why don't you go do that? And
hey, the 320 is a gentleman's airplane, all right? That's a gentleman's airplane.
No, he flew the 320 for almost 20 years, man, for America West, and he loved it. He was just trying to give me the dad advice, right? Like by this time, I would like to say that, with my dad, like our relationship has just gotten so much stronger as this time has went on, and I'm just so incredibly grateful that like the mentor that I have for a lot of this stuff. He just became so invested in this, and he was more like, hey dude, you could go get this in like a Seneca or like a Duchess or something. Just go get your ATP. Like if that's what you want to go do that. But are you sure you want to do this? And I told him, yeah, I'm pretty much got my mind made up. I'm going to sign up for this course. I went to ATP Jets in Dallas. Awesome program, phenomenal instructors, them and Avenger flight group right next to each other. I was absolutely just blown away. But man, that was the hard, like anybody that thought that, 0 to CFI in 10 months, dude, like this 2 week type rating was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life.
I've
Honestly,
heard.
that was,
I've heard it's hard.
yeah, that was no joke. So, I decided to do it to continue being uncomfortable. But honestly, man, I just wanted to be the best pilot that I could be. And if I was given two options, do it in a light twin GA plane that I've already done, right? Or break yourself out of this little, comfortability thing that you have going on right now and go get an ATP. You want to fly jets. Like words, words are one thing, but they don't really mean anything. Drive it into action. You're saying you want to go be an airline pilot, so go do that. Right? Don't go get your ATP. I mean, this is, not to anybody that's done it this way, but personally for me, right? Like it's like if I say and I'm telling my family I'm going to go be an airline transport pilot, but I'm hesitant or reluctant to go get a 320 type while you're doing it. Why? Like, is it just like, the common thing that I tell people is like, if you're just given lip service, right? Like words they're free, right? But drive those words into action, and now we actually have something to talk about. So that's what I did, man. Did the 320 type, loved it, awesome plane. I would hope to be able to fly it for, hopefully, not to name any airlines or anything, but you and I have talked offline about where I want to go and where I want to go fly those things, man. But yeah, that's why I chose it. That's why I did it, and kind of the things that led up to it was really just, you're never gonna do this by yourself. And I knew at that time, right, it takes a village, and the people that had influenced me and had been helping me along the way, I just leaned on them, man, and they dished it right back, and that's kind of what solidified the decision for me.
Dude, I love that. And yeah, that fear of failure, I think, is maybe why a lot of people won't do the hard thing, because it's like, well, this is an easier method. And it's not wrong by any means, like do your thing. But if you really mean what you say, proceed as such, and don't just talk about it, be about it, right? I love that. Well, that's great, man. I think your story is wild, man. I mean, I don't know anyone else who did what you did. It's, again, I'm not trying to highlight for the group. I'm not impressed per se. I mean, I kind of am. I'm not impressed per se by the volume of what you did and the time that you did it. I'm more impressed with your decision to take action, your resilience, your focus, your adaptability, your decision making, your commitment to your goal. I mean, that's the impressive part. Like, yeah, you did it fast, and that is awesome. But the fact that you decided to do it and then you did it, that's more impressive to me. Because a lot of people will make excuses. You can convince yourself of anything in life, right? And the fact that you convinced yourself that you wanted to do this and then you went out and executed, that's inspiring. And so I'm hoping that as people listen to your story, right? E2A, Marines, I want to change my trajectory for these reasons. I have my why. I saw a billboard. I took action. I continued that action with, after I strategized it. Yeah, I had some walls I hit, but I prevailed through them, all the way through, a type rating. I mean, that's powerful. And I appreciate you sharing. One of the things I had left to ask was either things to recommend kind of in closing for folks, words of advice, inspiration, like study recommendations, and then how do people get a hold of you if you want to be available for people to reach out and just ask questions? How would you, how about that?
No, man, for sure. So I guess one of the things that I had really honed in on, and I learned it from being a recruiter, and I just applied the same thing to flight school, was do not end your day on a zero, right? And when we say zeros on recruiting, it's, if you've done it, you get it, right? Totally different like context behind it, but win every day. If you need to go to work that day and you're in the back of your mind, like, man, when I get home tonight, I need to learn about weight and balance. And when you go home that day, if that's the prescribed goal for today is to learn about weight and balance, and if you allow that day to pass and you never open the book, right, or you didn't put some time in the morning to be able to study or listen to an audiobook. One of the things I've told people, man, is don't be upset with the results, negative results for work that you didn't do. Right. So if you but I don't know anything about weight and balance today. Well, what did I do to try? Oh, I didn't do anything. Well, you can't be disappointed, man, because you just didn't put it in. So don't never be disappointed for negative results for work that you didn't do. So that's something that just in the back of your mind, right? Just always think about that. And it sounds so simplistic and so simple, but apply it every single day, and you'll be amazed by the pace of which you're going to start flying through these books and all the studying in general, man. So that was one thing. Really hone in on the why. Like, people talk about that all the time, and not to, like, it's not Eric Thomas, like, what's your why? It's be real with yourself, man. Like, the emotion that you have to drive a change will actually put things into action. So find what that is, and if it's strong enough, and if it's real enough, then it will drive you to get through to the finish line. And I'd like to think of it as, I made it to, like, the first, like, halfway checkpoint of a marathon. I still got the rest of it to go, right? So, like, don't think that just because you go get an ATP that you're like, yeah, I made it, man. It's like, you have so much left to learn and so much left to do. Just try to think of it as, methodical checkpoints. So short-term realistic goals will amount to the results that you want. So break it up into, hey, this month I need to finish up my private. I got 20 hours left to fly. Awesome. Break that down into weeks. I got to fly 5 hours a week. Cool. That means that on Saturday and Sunday, if I fly 2 flights, it's got to amount up to 5 hours. If not, week 1, I could tell you that you're not going to make the goal, right? Like, by the end of the month, right? So if you're not making something real, then it's never going to be. So break that down, figure out what you need, and make it into a daily objective. If I accomplish this today, by the end of the week, I'm on track. I'm on this phase line to make this next goal, right? By the end of the month, I'll be able to attain it. That's the best mentality I could give to somebody that's trying to, because we talked about it a little bit, like, make a schedule. Okay, I can write all these words on a board, but, like, what does that really even mean? You have to seriously dissect that back. And if you don't understand what you need to accomplish the goal that you're going for, then you're just blindly, like, slinging money and flight hours at something that we don't truly understand yet. So talk with your CFI, figure out what the goal is, break it down, and make a schedule. And the other stuff that we talked about was like time management. We kind of beat that one up, but as long as you win every day and you don't allow yourself to end the day on a 0, then you're accomplishing something towards your goal. So that's the best advice that I have for the next guy or girl that's trying to become a pilot. I have a LinkedIn. If people look me up, Daniel O'Neill on LinkedIn, that's shoot me a message on RTAG. I'm in RTAG. Look me up on Facebook. They can hit me up there. And really, man, like, one of the things that for myself, trying to reach out to people on RTAG and just trying to, like, just blast out the willingness for help. Like, I'm willing to help anybody. If anybody has, a question, there's no stupid question. The only dumb question is the one that you don't never ask, right? Ask me anything. Hit me up. I'm more than willing to help somebody out, but just trying to expand the ability to help out more people is generally my goal, and that's why I'm here talking with you.
Dude, I love it, man. I appreciate, those are all great points, and I'm smiling because usually I'm, like, emphasizing those things, but you so truly believe what you're saying, and it's refreshing because it really, I don't want to oversimplify it, but that's really all it is the things you said, right? Taking action, planning, scheduling, community, network, goals, why, all that. So, dude, I appreciate you so much. I think your story is awesome. I can't wait till we release this, and you're going to help a lot of people, because sometimes that mountain is so high and it seems so distant that it's insurmountable, right? And talking through what you did, how you did it, right? The how is more important than the what is awesome. So I appreciate you joining us. This is awesome. And we'll have to jump back on a call. I'd love to hear how ground school goes once you go through that, to see, like, hey, how did this work out based off your background, and all that. But dude, Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This is awesome.
Right on. Well, I appreciate it too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, I think that wraps us up. I think we covered a lot, about an hour and a half. That was beautiful. I don't have any more questions left on my my chicken scratch over here. This is what my little yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. But I appreciate you. Hey, hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. Thanks.